Welcome back to Inquiring Minds bonus features, where I get the chance to talk about some of the content that had to get cut out of the message because it has been said that the brain can only absorb what the seat can endure. And so for time's sake, I had to cut content from this week's message. And I want to talk today, as we continue talking about dating, on this question: when am I old enough to date? Now, we acknowledge that the Bible doesn't address dating. That wasn't a concept that people did back in those days. And any time that we want to try to apply biblical wisdom to something the Bible doesn't directly address, we have to ask the question, like, what do we do? And so here's what I would say. I would say that when the Bible doesn't directly address a thing, what you want to do is you want to look for the wisdom in the Bible that indirectly talks about the thing. So, for example, we acknowledge the Bible doesn't talk directly about dating, but it does talk about marriage. It may not talk about breaking up, but it does talk about dealing with heartbreak. It may not talk about catching feelings, but it does talk about keeping covenant. So what we do is we look for the principles that seem to speak towards marriage or dealing with grief or being in committed relationship, and we apply that to concepts such as dating. You know, the Bible says in Proverbs 4:7, the beginning of wisdom is this: get wisdom. And that's what we're trying to do when it comes to some of these questions. So let's address the question of dating. When am I old enough to date? Man, if you are a teenager, thank you for taking the time to watch this. If you're a parent, I know this is a big question. When is someone old enough to date? Here's what I would say. I would say it is less about an age and it's more about maturity. Can we all agree? I've seen mature 18-year-olds and I've seen immature 30-year-olds. So I'll take you back to the goal. What is the goal of dating? The goal of dating is to find a spouse. That's it. So if you're at a stage of life where you are allergic to commitment and you're allergic to marriage, listen, you don't need to be dating. If you're not ready to get married, you're not ready to date. I know that's not popular. I know that sounds old-fashioned. If you're just looking for someone to hang out with, hey, get a friend. You want companionship? Get a puppy. Don't get involved in a relationship with somebody if your intention is not to find out if this is somebody that I'm going to marry. If marriage is not in your near future, I would say that you're not in a position to date right now. And I know it's like, but everybody dates, and I get that. But what I can tell you is that as I've gotten older, and as you get older, you'll begin to see things different and you'll understand things just a little bit differently. So for those of you that maybe your dad's here joining me and watching this video, and for those of you that aren't, just pretend for a moment that you're a dad and you've got a daughter. How would you feel if a young guy came up and asked you and said, hey, I'd love to take your daughter on a date. Here's the deal. I think she's pretty. I'd like to consume way too much of her time, possibly distract her from school, her hobbies, her family, most likely put her in morally compromising situations. And when it's done, I'll probably break her heart. I'm probably going to cause her to question her beauty and her worth. And oh, by the way, I have zero intention of marrying her. Are you cool with that? Guys, no way. There's no dad out there, no mom or dad that would sign off on that for their daughter, but we do it all the time. Listen, for my teens who are watching this, I realize what I'm saying is probably not going to change your mind in a short little snippet, but ask yourself, if I'm 15, 16, 17, 18, what's the point in dating? What is it I'm really hoping to get out of this? Because here's what I see 99% of the time. I know some of you were like, but my parents were high school sweethearts. Hey, there are exceptions to the rule, but let me tell you what happens most of the time. You start dating and you become way too exclusive too quick. You hang out together all the time, and because of that, he loses his friends, she loses her friends. His friends make fun of him. They say, oh, he's whipped. And they kind of turn their back on him because they feel like he's abandoned them. You start spending all your time together. You begin to compromise your convictions because you probably never communicated them. Not only that, but you also begin to alter some of your hopes and dreams for the future. You're choosing a college based on where he's going rather than what you wanted to do. Your hormones have kicked into overdrive, and so you're finding yourself getting into physical things that you probably shouldn't be doing. And that if and when you break up, guess what? You experience a level of loneliness and depression because you've got no friends to fall back on. And I know it's like, man, that sounds harsh, but it's reality. And so I would simply say, if you're not ready for marriage, you're also not ready for dating. Now, I'm not telling you don't be friends. Hang out in groups, but avoid the urge to get super exclusive just so that you can get into a physical relationship so that you can end up getting your heart broken. Listen, you want my opinion? I'm an advocate for people getting a job young, getting into a serious relationship young, having kids young. I think about my wife and I. I had just graduated college. I was 21, she was 22. We were pretty poor, and we figured it out, but we understood this. We were maturing in our relationship with Christ, and we understood the value of covenant and commitment to one another. If you're not in that place, don't waste somebody's time by asking them on a date.